You know, my family has always been number one for me. Even if I argue with my mom, my dad always takes my side, and vice versa. I was always sure that I would be supported at home, that we were a team, but there was something that made me think differently. Ever since a dog came into the house, my parents seem to have completely forgotten about me and my needs. My name is Sue, and my parents spend too much money on the dog, and they don't want to spend a penny on me. This story is quite difficult, but enlightening, and I would appreciate it if you would give it a like and support me. I wouldn't put the blame solely on my parents, because it was my fault too. The idea of buying a dog was mine to begin with, and it wasn't a rushed decision. It was a calculated, reasonable, though dictated by the internet, decision. And I'll say right off the bat that I still love this dog. He's great. I named him Keo. Before my 14th birthday, I explicitly let my dad know that I wanted a dog. He pretended he didn't hear me, but I knew my father would definitely remember my hint and do his best to surprise me. That evening, my mother suddenly announced, "Your father wants us to get you a dog for your birthday. How do you feel about that?" I loved the idea. I was over the moon. However, the wonderful news literally threw me into a stupor, and I expressed my gratitude rather strangely. I quietly mumbled, "Great idea, Mom." Even before I finished the phrase, I realized that I chose the wrong tone, but it was too late. Mom looked at me the way parents usually look at a child who had done something wrong. Then she frowned and added, "I haven't decided whether to give my consent yet." It was obvious that my answer made her upset and angry. It wasn't the reaction she'd expected when she told me that my father wanted to fulfill my dream. In her eyes, I looked like an ungrateful little brat. The next morning at breakfast, I was struggling with my spoon and my food. I had no appetite at all. I was still replaying yesterday's conversation in my head. Dad was still asleep. My mom apparently had been watching me the whole time, and she must have softened up a bit. She seemed to understand that I was upset about something and blamed my answer last night on that. Finally, she said, "Finish your breakfast. You have an important job ahead of you." When I heard that, I wouldn't have known what it was about if it hadn't been for the envelope my mother left on the table before she stepped out of the kitchen. There was a tradition in our family, and I'm sure my dad came up with it. Before the big holidays, I had to write my wish on a so-called lottery ticket. All I had to do was seal the envelope and wait for my parents to grant my wish. And they always fulfilled my wish, no matter what I asked for. The 2 weeks leading up to my 14th birthday passed very quickly, but the last couple of days, all I could think about was the dog. I imagined how I would go for walks with my dog, and everyone around me would be jealous and then faint with envy. I imagined their clumsy fall most vividly. Even at school, I spent all my time dreaming about the dog and imagining how we would live when it finally came into the house. Although I was used to being the best at everything, including my studies, I always set an example in everything I did. Not to say that my classmates were very happy about it. However, during those days, I was not interested in the lessons at all. And then, the dog was finally in my hands. Would you like to hear about how I celebrated the first hours of my 14th birthday? It couldn't have been a better party. I invited my closest friends, and together we went to the movies to see a new film. And even though it was a very bad movie, it still turned out to be a lot of fun. Finally, in the evening, the present literally walked into my room with its paws. My parents spent the whole day trying to get the dog to me in time. They stood in the doorway watching me pick up the puppy. "Happy birthday, Sue! Be careful with your present. He's still pretty small." "I'm gonna name you Keo," I told the puppy. It wagged its tail. It seemed to like the name. Nothing at the time suggested any trouble ahead. It all started when my parents started taking Keo for a walk during the day. At the beginning, it was my responsibility. But then for some reason, it was passed on to Mom and Dad. I liked it at first. I had more time to do my own thing. But after a few days, I started to realize that my parents were literally obsessed with this puppy. They just couldn't get enough of him. Our house had turned into a pet shop with lots of unnecessary dog stuff. At first, I just quietly observed what was going on to make sure I wasn't imagining things. And then I worked up the courage to start an uncomfortable conversation. Mom, I'm sick of you fiddling with this puppy all the time. You don't pay any attention to me. Yesterday, I told you 3 times how much I needed that bracelet, but you still haven't given me any money for it. But Mom was clearly not planning to apologize and open her purse. Sue, Daddy and I can no longer follow your every whim. It's unreasonable, as we now have a puppy in the house that is very costly and requires a lot of attention. Unreasonable? Yeah. Mom couldn't have known that I'd already told my friends at school that my parents had bought me this bracelet. And then this, too, and that, and even this. Yeah, my mom always told me, don't confuse wishful thinking with reality. Only now I'm beginning to understand the meaning of those words. All because of you, you stupid dog. I swear, I thought about locking him in the closet, but I couldn't. Just look at those eyes. My little sweetie. Anyway, I didn't know what to do. Since the dog is more important to them, I won't talk to my parents anymore. I don't care if they beg me on their knees. I said it out loud, hoping someone in the next room would hear me. Was I bluffing? Of course I was. The truth was, more and more often I felt the urge to do something nasty to my parents. The urge to do something awful was quickly followed by an urge to cry, and I spent almost every evening in tears. My parents could see that something was wrong with me, but I thought they just didn't want to get involved. At school, nobody knew why I was so sad and absent-minded either. Sue? Yeah, every time I went to the blackboard, I'd get confused, forget what I wanted to say, and out of frustration, be rude to my teachers. That's not how my parents raised me. But it didn't matter if now they barely remembered that they had a daughter. They spent all their free time with each other or the dog, and they didn't care that I really wanted to buy something. And after another argument, they refused to give my pocket money to me altogether. Well, thanks for at least feeding me. To be honest, I was desperate. Another week passed. I sat in the corner of the school cafeteria, eating my lunch and thinking how great it would be to have it all back. I looked so angry and frustrated that everyone knew not to sit at the same table with me. Any little thing could have pissed me off. It didn't take long for a little thing to happen. Mia, a girl from school, who loved to tease me at recess, was passing my table and dropped her spoon right on my tray. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do it. She hurried to apologize, but I was already losing it. You did it on purpose. You're such an idiot, Mia said in an exasperated voice and headed back to the empty table. Suddenly, I knew she was right. I was the biggest fool in the world. Mia apologized sincerely, and I snapped at her because of the problems at home. I got up the courage to go up to the girl after class. Mia, wait. Yeah? She stopped reluctantly. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to be rude. It's been such a hard day. Like every day. Mia softened and shrugged. I can see that. It happens. Do you want to go for a walk? We walked down the street talking about this and that, and I suddenly saw yesterday's enemy as someone close to my interests. Mia told me that she had wanted to be friends with me for a long time, but for some reason she thought that making jokes would help her get noticed. The next day I invited her over to my house. My parents were surprised to find out that my new friend's name was Mia, just like the girl who was always bugging me at school. My mother invited us to the table, but I hastily declined. Thanks, Mom, but we're going to study. I tried not to act like I usually did in front of Mia. After all, she didn't yet know the story that had happened between me and my parents. My parents were very surprised by my calm and polite tone. They hadn't heard it in a long time. We had a long chat with Mia in my room. There was a lot of silly, therefore fun girl talk. It was only after a few hours that I began to notice pauses in our conversation. It was obvious that Mia was giving me a chance to talk about myself, about something important and serious, something that bothered me so much. Someone knocked on the door of the room. For some reason, I knew right away that it was my mother. Girls, it's getting late, and it looks like it's going to rain. Sue, why don't you walk Mia home and take Keo with you? Okay, Mom. We walked part of the way in silence. Finally, Mia started a conversation that was really painful for me. You have a beautiful mother. Surprisingly, it was like a weight had been lifted off my chest. I finally felt like I had someone to share my worries with. I told Mia about my frequent fights with my mom and dad, about how much they had changed. Sometimes I feel like they don't care about me at all. Mia listened to me the whole time without interrupting. As soon as I made it clear that I was waiting for a response, she thought about it and said, "You know, you should talk to your parents. I've been to your place, and from what I've seen, your parents really love you." After a short silence, she added, 2 years ago, my parents separated. Mom couldn't get over the divorce. She cried all the time. She said that Dad just walked away, and somehow in her, walked away. I didn't hear an ounce of anger. Only now I understood why. I always felt that Dad had loved me more. Mom had stopped paying attention to me. She tried to communicate with me, take care of me, get involved in my life, but something was not working out. I wish she hadn't tried. I see genuine care and love in your family. Your parents love you and you love them. So why should the little things in life come between you? Mia stopped talking. We walked to her house and said goodbye, and Keo and I started walking back. I was embarrassed that I didn't hear the rest of the story. I should have asked my new friend to tell me what she thought about her relationship with her mother, to ask if there was anything I could do to help. It was beginning to rain. Big drops were hitting the pavement, but I wasn't in a hurry to get home. I sat down on the edge of a bench, and the dog sat down next to me. I wondered if I was doing the right thing, letting my material desires and selfishness destroy the peace within my family. Keo seemed to understand that I needed to sit in silence. I was afraid to look him in the eyes, for I knew I might burst into tears. Strangely, it was the puppy that made me realize how much I loved my parents. We returned home. The dog lingered a bit on the porch, and I had to call out to him. Well, shall we? I opened the door and we walked into our home, a place where Keo and I are always welcomed and loved. I think there comes a time in everyone's life when you have to look at yourself from the outside and figure out who you really are. If you don't do that, your ego can swell up to the point where it can one day burst and cause you a lot of pain. I'm grateful to my parents for not wanting to put up with my teenage stupidity, and I'm grateful to my new friend for opening my eyes. And Keo, of course. Without him, the story wouldn't exist. Friends, please share this video with anyone who might benefit from it. Subscribe to the channel to not miss new interesting stories. See you soon. See you soon.
Welcome to the Here's My Story channel. I'm Kirsten. Just like every other night, my mom assigned me to trash duty. I went outside and came face to face with a pit bull. It was growling and staring at me. Right at that moment, a man yelled, "Don't move! He got out of his leash! He might attack you!" I couldn't move because I was already paralyzed with fear. The man said, "I'll distract him. Walk backwards and get away. Don't run." Those 10 seconds felt like 10 years. First, I walked slowly like the guy said, but then I had to get going. I turned around and ran home as fast as I could. I hated taking out the trash because things like this happen to me all the time. Just last week, I almost got hit by a drunk driver. I walked into the living room, trying to catch my breath. My mom and my brother Sean were playing a board game and having a blast. "Mom, I almost got attacked by a pit bull. I was barely able to get away. Why am I the only one taking out the trash? Sean should also do it once in a while," I said. Mom was upset because I interrupted their game. "You're just like your dad, complaining all the time," Sean asked with a smirk on his face. "Mommy, did my dad ever complain?" Mom replied, "Your dad was a perfect man. That's why I left Kirsten's dad for him. But then your dad left me." And she laughed. My mom married twice and got divorced both times. With her first husband, she had me, and with her second, she had Sean. So my brother and I share our mom, but we have different dads. My mom loves my brother more than she loves me and doesn't hide it. I'm kind of like the maid of the house. She always wants me to do stuff for her. Sean, on the other hand, enjoys being mom's favorite. One night my dad called. He sounded awful. "Honey, I'm afraid I have some bad news for you. Unfortunately, we lost your grandpa. His body is being transported on a plane. There's something we need to go over before the funeral. Your grandpa's will is going to be presented. I talked to your mom. She's going to bring you to the lawyer's office," he said. My grandpa lived in South Africa, so I couldn't see much of him, but we talked on the phone all the time. He was my confidant. He was the one I called when my mom upset me. He would calm me down with his kind words. "Come, live here with me," he'd say. I'd refuse his offer and say, "I know she's a good person. I love her, even though she doesn't love me." I cried until morning thinking about my grandpa. As Mom took me to the lawyer's office, she said, "Sean has a soccer game today. Couldn't this guy have died another day?" "Mom, He's my grandpa and your ex-father-in-law. Have some respect, I grumbled. Mom snapped. Why? He didn't like me. I didn't like him. I even kicked him out of the house once. When we got to the office, my dad was waiting for us there. Mom said, "This is a waste of time. What will? He had nothing to give his family." "Then you're in for a surprise," Dad replied. My father had a large stake in a diamond mine. That's why he lived in South Africa. Mom was really surprised. Just then, an older lawyer walked in. He started reading my grandpa's will. My grandpa had left half of his fortune to my dad and the other half to me. But since I was too young, I couldn't get my inheritance yet. I'd have $30,000 transferred to my account on the first day of every month. I would receive my entire inheritance of $22 million as soon as I hit 18. My mom almost fainted when she heard about the money. She leaned towards me and whispered, "Oh my God, we are rich, sweetheart." Sweetheart? So now she starts calling me pet names after hearing about my inheritance? But she was in for another surprise. The lawyer continued reading the will. "I haven't forgiven my ex-daughter-in-law. I don't want her to benefit from my fortune in any way. If Kirsten gives her mom even a penny, both her monthly allowance and the inheritance amounting to $22 million will be cut off." My mom restrained herself even though she was furious. "I will benefit from that money forever and you can't stop me," she mumbled. When we got back home, my mom was a different person. She used to call me only by my name. Now she was calling me honey, baby, and lovey. She came by my room all the time. Every time she did, she would bring me something. "Honey, I made you a milkshake." "Lovey, I thought you'd like a nice sandwich now." She would only do this kind of thing to Sean before. I thought I had just become Mom's favorite. What would Sean do when he realized this? That night, when Mom saw me with my usual trash bag in my hand, she stopped me and called my brother. With the softest voice, she said, "Baby, from now on, Sean will take out the trash. What do you say?" handing the bag to Sean. Sean didn't know about the will. He had no idea why Mom had a change of heart. He just stared at her. "What are you looking at? Take out the trash now. This is your job from now on," she yelled. Even though he couldn't figure out what was going on, Sean ran outside. Over the next few days, Sean found out that he wasn't the little prince in our castle anymore. He was now doing all the things that I used to do. It was finally the first day of the month and I got $30,000 in my bank account. Mom looked very happy. "Honey, do you want to go shopping tomorrow? You're rich now, so you can buy anything you want," she said. Mom took me to the Louis Vuitton store first. "This brand makes wonderful bags. Let's get you some," she said. "Mom, these are not right for my age and they're beyond expensive. You have to be stupid to pay this much money for a handbag," I replied. But of course my mom didn't listen to me. She bought 3 Louis Vuitton bags. Because of Grandpa's rules, she couldn't shop for herself. We had bought the handbags for me, but she was going to be the one who used them. Our second stop was Chanel. My mom got a dozen expensive dresses. Every time she would come out of the fitting room, she would look at herself in the mirror and say, "Sweetie, this will look so good on you. Let's get this one too." It was so obvious that she was shopping for herself, but she was outright lying. That day we went in and out of a lot of luxury stores. It's hard to believe, but we ended up spending around $25,000. Handbags, jewelry, dresses, perfumes. We came back home with so many shopping bags. When my brother opened the door, he stared at the bags in wonder. Apparently, Mom never said anything to him about the inheritance. He was still trying to figure out what had happened. Mom said, "Stop staring and carry these inside. Then make me a coffee. You washed the dishes, right? Don't forget to load up the washer." Sean took all the shopping bags to my mom's bedroom. At that moment, I realized that none of the things we bought were for me. Yes, we spent $25,000 and bought nothing for me. But if you ask my mom, it was all mine. That week, my mom spent the rest of the money. She went to luxury restaurants and ate expensive food. I couldn't eat anything because that sort of food doesn't agree with me. Mom ended up spending thousands of dollars on these weird-looking dishes. When she ran out of money, my mom started dreaming about next month's money. She would come to my room to hug me and say things like, "Honey, we'll get you a wonderful Rolex watch." Or, "Lovey, we'll get you a beautiful necklace from Tiffany." We both knew that she was buying those for herself, not me. The first day of the following month, Mom woke me up really early. "Honey, could you check your account and see if the money came in?" she asked. I checked the bank's mobile app. I only had $5 in my account. Mom was upset, but she still said, "Let's wait a little, baby. I'm sure it'll arrive soon," giving me a kiss on the cheek. That day, I did not get the $30,000 I was supposed to receive every month. When I didn't get it the next day either, Mom wanted me to call the lawyer. I called the lawyer with my mom. He asked me to put him on speaker so my mom could hear him as well. "Kirsten, I have bad news for you. As you know, your grandpa didn't want your mom to benefit from your inheritance. If that condition was not met, you would be cut off. Your grandpa asked me to hire a private eye. He followed you last month and observed that you bought many things for your mom." My mom jumped in. "You're mistaken. We got those for Kirsten, not for me," she said, trying to play it down. The lawyer replied, "We have the information from the stores you shopped from. We determined that all the garments you bought were your size. You apparently got them for yourself. Because you broke the rules, your daughter is not going to be able to receive her inheritance. The entire sum will be donated to a non-profit organization." When the lawyer hung up, my mom looked really sad. "Don't be sad, Mommy. At least you had a month of carefree spending," I said to console her. She growled, "Shut up! I made the mistake of trusting you. I let myself get hopeful. Now I'm disappointed. It's all because of you," and shut the door behind her as she left. I knew my mom loved me because of my money, but I was still very sad. I started crying. Just then, the doorbell rang. My mom said, "Kirsten, get the door, then take the trash out." When I opened the door, I couldn't help but scream. Mom ran to the door, wondering what was going on. My grandpa was standing in front of me. "Don't be scared, my child. I'm not a ghost. We devised a little game to show your mom's true colors. When you got the money, she started loving you more, right? That was exactly what I expected her to do. She didn't disappoint me," he said. When she heard this, Mom started crying silently. She was too ashamed to look me in the eyes. She knew she'd made a mistake, but it was too late. Grandpa said, "My sweet girl, get your stuff. Come with me to South Africa for a while. Let's give your mom some time to think about what she's done. Maybe she'll come around." It's been 4 months since that day. She called me for the first time last month. She apologized so many times and really looks like she meant it. But I'm still not sure if I should trust her. She wants to visit. Should I let her come? Please write in the comments. Bye now.
Hi, my name is Sasha, and I'm a popular singer with the wealthiest parents in town. Before I continue, please like and subscribe. Selling out concerts weekly and dealing with fans around the world might sound fun, but you know what's even cooler? Partying. All night long. In the middle of my show, I escaped with my boyfriend Theo to go to the biggest island party ever. But when he pulled over to a helicopter pad, my excitement turned to panic. I thought we were going to use a yacht. You know I have a phobia of heights, right? It's a 5-minute ride. You're just being melodramatic. Get over it. Get over it? Enjoy the party without this drama queen then. Babe, come on. I didn't mean it. I'm sorry. I just ignored him and stormed off. As I walked back to the city, I noticed a person in a hooded jacket following me. I grabbed my stiletto and yelled at him. "Why are you hiding, dude? Are you scared? Don't worry. I don't bite." To my surprise, he just threw a magazine at me and ran away. What the chocolate fudge? I picked it up and realized that it was my magazine, with a death threat drawn all over my face. Unfortunately for him, I was fearless. The threats kept coming over the weekend. My parents had always wanted to hire a bodyguard for me, but I didn't want some boring old guy to keep following me around. But this time, they wouldn't take no for an answer. When I finally saw my bodyguard, I almost passed out. He was the most exquisite specimen of a man I had ever seen, and he looked just a few years older than me. "Hey, handsome. Are you sure you're a bodyguard and not my next boyfriend?" To my surprise, he didn't smile a bit. "Rude. You look too young for this job. How can I trust you?" Suddenly, a ball from our neighbor came hurling right at me, and he instantly caught it with one hand. "Trust me, I'm really good at my job. You can check my records. Your father has everything you need." "Yeah, okay, whatever. Let's go." He opened the car door for me, and as I slipped in, I accidentally brushed my shoulder on his chest, and oh my, it felt harder than a rock. When we arrived at school, Theo didn't look so happy to see me with my young bodyguard. He pulled me aside and said, "Look, babe, I know I insulted you the other night, but getting back at me by flirting with another guy, how could you? He's my freaking bodyguard. I'm still mad at you for what you did, and now you're accusing me of cheating?" Suddenly, Damon stepped in. "Is there a problem here?" "Stay out of this, man." Theo tried to push him aside, but Damon pounced on him and pinned him to the ground. "What the heck are you doing? Let go of me, idiot." "Hey, stop it." Damon finally released my boyfriend after a minute. As expected, Theo went psycho. I immediately blocked him before he got his butt kicked by Damon. "That's enough, Theo. He's just doing his job." "Why do you need a bodyguard when you have me? I'm your boyfriend. I'll protect you." A small spider suddenly landed on his shoulder, and he ran screaming. Protect my butt. As I walked down the hall with Damon, girls were literally drooling all over him. "He looks more like a model than a bodyguard. He can be the father of my children. He's way more attractive than Theo. I really want to feel his biceps." These girls sounded so desperate, but they were right. When I reached our classroom, my best friend Tessa came up to me with my favorite coffee. "Hey girl, so I brought you your..." Damon suddenly snatched it and started sniffing it. He then took a sip and waited for a few seconds before saying, "Clear." As he gave it back to me, Tessa was glaring at him. "Excuse me, did you really think that I'll poison my best friend?" "Just doing my job." Tessa then dragged me to a corner. "So you're giving up your privacy just like that? I can see that he's very attractive, but something about him screams bad news. He even sounds like a demon. You have to get rid of him ASAP." "Oh, come on, girl. It's just his first day. Let's see." But Tessa was right. I didn't have a second of privacy. Damon followed me around every freaking second. He stood behind me in all of my classes and even in restrooms. It was so awkward. At home, he'd just stand outside my door, and I never saw him sleep. And worse, he had this permanent ice-cold expression on his face that gave me chills. I had a recording event one night, and when I reached the studio, a guy came rushing toward me. He was about to draw out something from his back pocket when suddenly, Damon grabbed his arm and twisted it. "Drop your weapon." "What? I just wanted an autograph from her, man." Damon let go of the poor guy, and it was so embarrassing. "What's the matter with you? I'm a popular singer, so you have to get used to my fans." "Just doing my job." "Calm down, Sasha. Calm down." The next day at school, Theo kept following me around to apologize, but I still ignored him until he said, "My producer cousin is throwing an exclusive yacht party with some A-listers this weekend. She's a fan of yours, and she'd be ecstatic if you came." He had my attention now. Parties were my weakness. Not so fast, sweetheart. Hang out with me tomorrow?" "Okay, fine." Theo requested not to bring Damon to our date tomorrow, so I talked to him in private. "My job is not to leave your side for a minute. So sorry, can't do." He was so firm about this, so I finally gave up and let him come with us. We went to a private movie theater and watched a super sad movie together. Minutes into the movie, Theo and I were already crying our hearts out, while Damon had no reaction at all. What was he, a robot? After the movie, we went to a fancy restaurant and I was having a good time with the lobster until Theo started forcing himself on me. "Just one kiss, babe. Come on." "Not now, Theo. We're in a public place and people are staring." But he was persistent. Just then, Damon grabbed him and threw him away like a piece of paper. Theo was furious. He grabbed a chair, but before he could hit Damon with it, I pushed him away. "Stop it, right now!" "Your stupid bodyguard started it. Why don't you tell him to get a life and go home to his mommy?" "No, Theo, you go home." I immediately called him a cab, and when he was finally gone, I turned to Damon angrily. "I know he was being a jerk, but I can handle my personal life. You don't have to interfere every freaking second." "He was disrespecting your personal space." "Your job is to keep me safe, not to meddle in my personal matters. Know your boundaries." "Apologies. It will never happen again." I actually didn't mind that Theo got the thrashing he deserved, but Damon always being around was just getting on my nerves. A few days later at a concert, I was performing my newest single, and everyone was singing along with me. It felt amazing. Some of them even started climbing up on the stage to join me. Suddenly, Damon jumped in and pushed them off stage. What in the world? He then lifted me and carried me to the backstage, in the middle of my freaking performance. I finally had enough. My parents are paying you to protect me, not to annoy me and screw up my concerts.
Your life is in danger, ma'am. You have to treat everyone as an enemy.
That is ridiculous. Whoever sends those stupid threats is probably just some harmless loser.
Better to be safe than sorry.
I complained to my parents about his behavior, but they praised him for it. But he's ruining my career and even my personal life.
He's just doing his job, honey, and that's to make sure you're safe all the time.
They were hopeless cases, so I resorted to Tessa instead, and she came up with a plan. Test his patience, annoy him, do everything you can to make him quit. You're good at that, you gorgeous brat. I love the sound of it, girl. You're the best. Of course I am. I stayed up at 4 a.m. that night to disturb Damon in his sleep, but to my surprise, he was already up. I need you to get my favorite Starbucks coffee.
That's not part of my job description.
Do it, or I'll make your job harder.
Fine. What's your order?
1 iced venti caramel macchiato with 6 shots of mocha, 1/4 non-fat milk, 1/8 almond milk with medium whipped cream, and a caramel drizzle with a rose design on top, in a biodegradable takeaway cup with a pink straw.
Got it.
What? I was just messing with him, but to my surprise, he immediately left, and holy mother of toads, he came back with my exact order. How?
Anything else?
That's all for now. Later that day, I went to the mall and went on a crazy shopping spree, making him carry all my bags to tire him out. But he was like a machine. I entered a clothing store, and as I tried on all the prettiest clothes, I kept asking for his opinion, but he wasn't paying attention. Hello? Aren't you gonna give me a compliment or something?
Giving an opinion about your outfits is not part of my job, ma'am.
Any normal guy would have been drooling at me by now. He must be a cyborg. To get back at him, I faked a sprain and forced him to carry me on his back, but he was still as strong as a freaking tank. Finally giving up, I went to the bathroom with everything I'd bought and escaped through the window. After making sure that I'd lost him, I went to an orphanage and gave out all the clothes to the kids. While I was having fun with them, Tessa sent me some pictures of Theo kissing a blonde girl in a restaurant. At this point, I didn't even care. Theo was trash. I immediately sent him a message and told him that we were done. He was the worst boyfriend anyway. He started calling me immediately, so I just blocked him. Problem solved. Later, I went to a local club to celebrate my breakup, and while I was dancing my heart out, I was shocked to see someone watching me from the bar. Damon! Of course he tracked me down. A cute guy tried to dance with me, and suddenly, Damon came and pushed him away. Hey, listen, buddy, I'm sick of this. If you're gonna keep scaring all the other guys away, you dance with me.
I don't mix business with pleasure.
Dance with me, or go sit quietly in a corner while I find someone. Before I could poke the guy next to me, Damon suddenly grabbed my hand to dance. Just then, the song shifted to a slow, romantic one, and he pulled me in closer by the waist. It's not so bad, is it?
If you say so, ma'am.
You can say my name, you know.
If you say so, Sasha.
He had the faintest smile on his face, and my heart skipped a beat. We slow danced as he looked deep into my eyes, and suddenly, his face was so close to mine. Just then, he pulled away from me, like he'd had an electric shock.
We need to go home.
But it's still early.
Safety reasons.
Ugh, he was so annoying. When we got home, I saw a box sitting on my bed, and when I opened it, lots of rats jumped out and started running all over the room. Damon saw a little note inside, and for the first time ever, it scared me. For real.
Someone broke into your room. This person means business. We have to be more careful, ma'am.
He suggested that I shouldn't go to school for the next few days for safety, and I agreed. One night, my manager called and reminded me of my concert in Paris the next day. It was my biggest one yet, and I had to go.
I don't think you should be making public appearances till we find out who's trying to hurt you.
No, I'm not gonna let some creep scare me and make me decide what I should do. This was planned in advance, and all the tickets are sold, and I'm not canceling. Damon was forced to allow me, but on one condition. We had to share a hotel room so he could keep a constant eye on me. When we were finally in Paris, I rehearsed my songs all night while he was constantly looking out the window. The next morning, I found him still asleep on the couch when something on the floor caught my attention. A picture of a beautiful girl in his wallet. She looked around my age. I quickly put the wallet away, feeling something weird. Was I jealous? No, of course not. Why would I care if he had a girlfriend? Hours before the concert, while my makeup team was working on me, Damon suddenly snatched me away.
Can't you just postpone this? It's too dangerous.
I told you, I can't.
Please, Sasha, just listen to me. I care about you, you know?
Oh, do you? I thought I was your only client. Just do your job, which is to keep me alive, and let me do my job, which is to entertain people. And actually, I prefer it when you call me ma'am. You got me?
Loud and clear, ma'am.
During my concert, I tried not to think of Damon and the death threats, and it was going so well. In the middle of my performance, I saw Damon in the crowd, and he was smiling at me. He looked so lovely. No, snap out of it, Sasha. He has a girlfriend. While I was singing my fourth song, I suddenly spotted a hooded figure in the crowd, and he was aiming something at me. No, no, no. I froze in panic, but just then a strong pair of arms grabbed me and carried me off the stage, and I looked up to see Damon's tense face.
Stay here. Don't move.
He returned a few minutes later, saying he'd lost the hooded figure. I was still shaking in fear, and he gently picked me up and we returned to the hotel. He tucked me into bed and sat on a chair close by. I closed my eyes and tried to sleep, feeling safe as he watched over me. Sometime later, I felt him fixing my blanket and gently caressing my cheek as he left. Why did he do that? And why was it giving me a heart attack? When I woke up the next morning, I peeked into the kitchen and smiled when I saw him dancing while cooking our breakfast. It was the first time I saw him looking so human. I felt shy when he turned to me. I didn't have any makeup on.
That's the first time I've seen you without makeup, and you look even more beautiful than usual.
Is complimenting me part of your job now?
Maybe.
I knew it. No one can ever resist my charms, not even my emotionless bodyguard. I wonder what your girlfriend would say about this.
I assume you're talking about the picture of the girl in my wallet?
Gosh, was he actually awake that time? He revealed that it was his sister, and they grew up in the orphanage together. He lost her because he'd failed to protect her, and that's why he became a bodyguard.
She'd always wanted to go to Paris and go up the Eiffel Tower.
I suddenly felt brave. Let's go there then, for her.
After what happened yesterday, there's no way I'm allowing you to go anywhere. Also, I know from your file that you're afraid of heights.
I'm not scared when I have you around. I'll be fine, I promise. He finally agreed, but later as we were climbing onto the escalator at the Eiffel Tower, he must have noticed I was nervous.
Are you sure about this? We can just go back, you know.
No, I can do this. When we reached the top, I squealed and covered my eyes.
You made it to the top. You have to see this view now.
I don't know if I can. How about you take a look, and we'll go down?
But I don't want you to miss this, Sasha. I've got you. Do you trust me?
Yes I do.
Okay then, open your eyes when I say so.
I kept my eyes shut as he led me forward, and then suddenly, I felt his arms wrap around my waist.
Now.
I opened my eyes, and I gasped. I was so close to the edge, and the whole glittering city was in front of me, and I'd never felt safer in my life. Damon?
Yes?
Have you ever fallen for a client? My smile instantly faded at his answer.
No, it would never happen. I can't do my job well if I'm emotionally involved.
So, it was just me who was feeling this. He was just being nice to his client. After a week, I had to go back to school for the final exams. I looked for Tessa so we could study together in the library, but I couldn't find her. I sat down to study alone and let Damon stand by the door so I could focus. Minutes later, he barged in and yelled,
"Sasha, look out!"
To my horror, the huge bookshelf behind me began to fall on me, but Damon leapt forward and pushed me out of harm's way, and it fell on him. He was in the hospital for a week, and despite my parents' protests that I needed to stay safe at home, I insisted on visiting him every day. One day, while I was in the waiting area, Tessa came to see me with my favorite coffee, but before I could take a sip, a hand suddenly slapped the cup away. We turned to see Damon and a cop beside him, who suddenly put handcuffs on Tessa. "What are you doing, you moron?" "Damon, what's happening?" Suddenly, he revealed something that blew my mind. Tessa was the one who'd pushed the bookshelf on me.
I'd been keeping an eye on her and studying her. That day, I saw her enter the library from the back door, and I knew she was up to no good. I'm sure your coffee is poisoned too.
My best friend was trying to hurt me? Tessa, why? And suddenly, Tessa turned into a monster because I hate you. You have everything I've ever wanted. Beauty, talent, fame, wealth. Theo, life is so unfair. I would have gotten rid of you already if your stupid bodyguard wasn't such a pain. She screamed as the cop dragged her away, and I was left speechless. Damon then pulled me into a hug.
Are you okay?
I'll be fine. How are you?
I'm okay, but I can't be your bodyguard anymore, Sasha. I just can't fight my feelings for you anymore, and it's wrong.
If I fire you right now, will you be my boyfriend instead? Without a word, he grabbed my face and finally kissed me on the lips. I took that as a yes. Hi, my name is Sophie, and I'm from Ohio. In my small town, I was known as the kid with the perfect mom. She raised me alone after my dad left us, and she was so stunning that she became a famous model. Everyone admired her beauty and strength. Mom loved looking and being perfect. She always dressed us up in matching, amazing outfits, and once I joined school, she threw parties for my classmates and their parents all the time. We were the most popular family in the first grade. But when the party was over, she was a very different person. She was obsessed with doing crazy skin routines and clicking pictures. If I wanted to hang out with her, she would make me join her dumb photos. One time, she actually dressed up as Mary and I was her little lamb. She posted that photo all over the internet. For weeks, whenever I spoke to people in school, they just said, "Bah! No way I was hanging out with Mom anymore." I had plenty of friends to spend time with, even after that embarrassing lamb photo. I was always off at sleepovers with my friends, until one day, when I was in the second grade, Mom gave me some bombshell news. "I'm pregnant. I'm gonna have a baby." I screamed with excitement. "I'm gonna be a big sister?" "Yes." "Who's her dad?" "Not important." When baby June was born, I held her in my arms and refused to let go. Mom threw a massive party at home to celebrate her, and everyone fell in love with her adorable blue eyes and curly hair. But as June grew up, I realized something was wrong with her. If someone wasn't standing directly beside her, she would start crying like a banshee. She constantly bumped into furniture, and if I kicked a ball away from her, she'd take forever to find it, even though it was in plain sight. We took her to a doctor and found out that she had no vision in the center of her eye. She could only see on her sides. Her condition was called Stargardt disease, and unfortunately, it didn't have a cure. Eventually, she had to get her the bulky glasses. They didn't fix her vision completely, but they helped. I got ready for big sister duty. I chose June's outfits every day, walked her to school, and destroyed anyone who dared to look at her wrong. None of the kids in June's class wanted to be friends with her, so I asked Mom to throw a party for her classmates, just like she used to for me. But Mom said, "I'm too busy with work. Besides, June has you. She doesn't need anyone else." By the time I was in 7th grade, June came everywhere with me. She came to my sleepovers, went to the movies with my friends, and we all stayed up doing each other's hair. I thought we had so much fun. But one day, I came out into the backyard to see that June wasn't wearing her glasses anymore. My friends were throwing them around like a ball. I took her glasses back from my friends and screamed at them like crazy. It was just a game. "Get out of my house! Get out!" How could they be such jerks? After that day, they uninvited me to all their parties, and they started ignoring me in school. They even made me sit at the unpopular table at lunch. In just one night, I'd become a complete loner. Whatever. I didn't need their terrible energy, and their behavior made June feel really bad. One day, I saw her talking to some kids in the neighborhood without her glasses on. When I asked her to wear them, she threw them at me. "No, I'm finally making friends." "June, you could get really hurt." "Go away, Soph." She ran away from me and started crossing the street. A car was coming really fast and it was gonna hit her. I just knew it. I flew towards her, but I was too slow. Just as I prepared for the worst, a boy suddenly grabbed June and pulled her off the road. I was so relieved, my knees melted. The boy placed June before me and gave me his hand.
Are you okay?
"Are you an angel?" "Excuse me? Hello." I got myself together and thanked him for his help. His name was Philip, and he was the bravest person I'd ever met. He was new to our neighborhood, and he was going to join our school. We became friends instantly, like puzzle pieces fitting together. And the best part? He was amazing with June. He was never mean to her, and he said her glasses made her look like a cool superhero. When I was in the 10th grade, Philip asked me to be his girlfriend, and I said yes faster than the speed of light. I was so excited for my first relationship, but the only problem was that we never got time alone.